Hi, friends. I'm Amanda, and I fulfilled the dream of numerous kids. Probably. I actually stayed in the supermarket for a whole week straight. Truth be told, I was locked up there, and that actually wasn't dream material at all. Every child who enters the supermarket for the first time wants to buy as much as he or she can handle. All those shelves lined with candies, sodas, chocolates, and toys act as magnets. And lots of kids dream to be left alone in a supermarket, to walk among those shelves with no supervision, and to feel like a king or a queen. And I was the one who actually managed to fulfill that wish, albeit inadvertently. That day, I decided to visit a nearby supermarket after school. I just wanted to buy some goodies, nothing more. There were a lot of people at that checkout, men and women buying up all their stuff with coupons. I was actually surprised that my parents weren't there, storming the supermarket for cheap canned foods. Well, anyway, the situation wasn't looking too good. I felt almost lost in the line with my 2 chocolates, while all the other big people held huge baskets full of food. And then they sounded the alarm. Everyone was ordered to urgently leave the building. There was some danger, apparently, yet I did not understand what it was all about. Those speakers in the stores always have huge interference issues, so I wasn't able to hear a thing. Still, everyone immediately rushed to the exit, and the majority of customers took their carts with them. I'm only 15, and I'm quite a fragile girl, so I didn't dare risk following the crowd. I've heard horrible things about getting trampled, so I decided to hide at the checkout to wait it out. Funny thing was, they had actually told us at school about how to behave in a similar situation, but I guess I just panicked. You see, it was the first actual extreme situation in my whole life, and it felt horrible. All those loud people, the alarm sounds, the crowd around me, I think I even fainted for an hour or so, right in my hiding place. But when I regained consciousness, there was no one around. No one at all. I rushed to the doors and rattled the handle for about 5 minutes until I got exhausted. Still, I was sure that my parents would probably start looking for me sooner or later, or someone would come to check the store, so I only needed to wait for a little bit. 3 hours later, and I started wondering what the store actually looked like without people in it. I began to walk between the shelves, went into the back rooms, found the employees' toilets. Oh, that was a lucky find. And even a mini kitchen used by the staff. But I didn't find any phones or walkie-talkies. Well, there was one, but it didn't work. And my own cell phone fell out of my pocket and died several hours earlier when I got caught in the crowd. So I had zero ability to contact the outside world. Therefore, I returned to the hall and started waiting. But nobody ever came for me, and I don't really know why. I guess nobody knew I was stuck in the supermarket. Yet the rescuers didn't come that day, and they didn't come the next day, too. I was hungry, I was thirsty, and I had no intention of starving near a refrigerator full of food. So I decided to consider that time an impromptu holiday season. First, I dined in the deli, and then I played the consoles in the electronics section, and then I watched some TV, and then I ate more food. But soon the deli was empty, and I moved on to the canned food. And of course, I ate a lot of chocolate. At first, I was ashamed to take the goods off the shelves, but then I realized that no one was actually looking for me. So I decided to live the dream, so to say. I even hid some cool stuff in case someone would actually come looking for me. I hid those kinds of things among the boxes near the back door. You never know. Pretty soon, though, it was incredibly boring just sitting there counting the hours. So I ate lots more chocolate and played lots more console games, and I even rode the carts down the supermarket aisles. And yeah, I wasn't too ashamed of that. At first, I really wanted to just get out of that shop, but I had no means to do so, and no one seemed to care. So I did what I had to do to not go crazy. And yeah, I did kind of take some money from the register. It was compensation for the psychological damage, and I'm not a thief by any means. But a whole week eventually passed, and only then did the store manager finally come with the guards to inspect the situation and find me. I was incredibly glad to be found and to see my parents again. My mom and dad were so happy. Apparently, they thought that I had been kidnapped. We even decided not to sue the supermarket. All in all, I ended up safe and sound, so Dad just told me to think of that week as an adventure and move on. But then the manager decided to sue us. He said that my parents and I had to pay a hefty fine for stealing a lot of things and eating a lot of food. He said that I was practically a criminal. Of course, we went to court and even hired a lawyer, and we still lost. The shop's lawyers told the court that it was all my fault. Apparently, I either had to call for help or run with the crowd when they sounded the alarm. So my family was forced to pay for all the stuff that I used. Since then, I've never, ever been to any other supermarket. And of course, my childish wishes are long gone. First of all, being alone in a supermarket wasn't that fun. And second of all, it's super never fun to be forced to pay for things that you don't even need.
Greetings. I'm William from the security services of the supermarket, and here's our version of the story. I really hope the teenagers who listen to it won't act stupid in the supermarket ever again. Supermarket guards' work is never dull. Each day we catch 3 or 4 wannabe thieves who apparently think that no one was able to witness their crime. Some even tried to spend the night inside the supermarket. Usually those are homeless. When we detect such an attempt, we call the police. Our cameras can spot anything, so none of those attempts were ever successful. Yet it was the first time when we got a thief who was also willing to spend several nights inside the supermarket. That person was lucky to commit the crime right at the moment when our shop got closed because of the periodic inspection and the cameras were switched off. The signalization rarely goes off without a proper reason, yet sometimes it happens. That was one of those times. Unfortunately for us, yet very lucky for that girl. On that day, the smoke detectors reacted to something and the alarm was sounded. My colleagues and I saw nothing wrong, but we could have been mistaken, so we decided that the evacuation would be the most sound decision. When there's a fire, or when the sensors are triggered, the security systems are automatically turned off so as not to create an even more dangerous situation, so that the store's cameras and alarms got powered down. The people began to evacuate following the instructions. The guards were the last to leave, but we still thoroughly examined the hall before that. The experts from the fire department then examined all the premises once more and sealed the store before further proceeding. Everything went according to the instructions. I've got 10 years of a supermarket guard work experience under my belt, and I know for sure that you can't possibly get lost in a store. Unless, of course, you actually tried to hide from the guards, that is. If you want to be found, you had only to stay in the open and do nothing more. The girl told us that she got lost, yet neither the guards nor the experts from the fire department found her. She must have been deliberately hiding from us, and I don't know why. Funny thing is that there were ways to make contact with the outside world if the lost person wishes to be found. We've got the guard call button just near the outside door. There's also the special phone used for emergencies. The instructions to both the button and the phone are glued to the wall right near those devices. Besides, neither the button nor the phone ever got switched off, even if the whole store is powered down. The girl could just smack the call button or pick up the phone to contact the rescuers. We even checked those systems after the girl got saved. Everything was okay. The call button and the phone were functioning properly all that time. She just never tried to use them. Well, yeah, the girl might have panicked and even misread the instruction. Still, all the windows and the doors of the store are made of glass. She could easily break one of those and got her freedom. Besides, there's the bolted back door that was never sealed. The bolt was situated inside the store. The kid has numerous ways to leave the store, but used none of them. All of that could only mean one thing. Our cute girl hid in the store on purpose. She lived there for a week, never actually trying to get out. She spoiled and devoured a lot of stuff and then even tried to charge us for moral damage. The manager of the store decided to sue the girl's family. We didn't actually want their money. The insurance paid us back, so we did not lose anything. But the proceedings in the court were important, so the devious people knew that they would have problems if they tried a similar trick. Consider it an act of intimidation, if you will. Still, I'm glad the girl wasn't actually harmed. I don't even want to think about what could have happened if the smoke detectors were right and the alarm wasn't false. Guys and girls, you're young and you want adventures. I respect that. Still, don't consider the older men and women fools. And be mindful of alarms. If you ignore it and there is an actual problem, everything might get ugly real fast.
Hello everyone, my name's Lucy. This is my story about how I live in the world where the season change is quite a normal thing. And the problem is, my body refuses to live if it gets colder than 70 degrees Fahrenheit outside. I lived quite an ordinary life, like everyone else, until I turned 16. Though I had a slight allergy to cold. But me and my parents lived in the country where the temperature rarely got below 30 degrees. So it didn't bother me much. I don't know what happened now. Doctors say I have some kind of hormonal restructuring. After my 16th birthday, I became completely different. At first, no one noticed anything special about me. Well, I started to fall ill a little more often, though it was summer. Before that, I had good health. I didn't even sneeze. And then, I had a cold changed by the flu. Then, some kind of inflammation started. It affected my looks. In the fall, my skin simply started to peel off in layers, like that of a snake. It was similar to my childhood allergy, but it was very hot outside then. And when the temperature dropped down to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, I just had frostbite. My fingers turned black in front of my eyes, and they brought me to the hospital. The doctors started talking about amputation. But how could I freeze my hands in this kind of weather? It was a mystery to me. I simply didn't have the answer. And in the hospital, I recovered. Under the thermal blankets, my temperature became normal, and my skin even stopped peeling off. Then, the doctors got what the matter was. While I was lying under the thermal blanket, everything was fine. But if I was taken to the shower, I had trouble, coughing, frostbite, and feeling like an ice-hole penguin. But no one understood the reason for such sharp climatic changes. I was prescribed hot water bottles, and they let me go. For me not to take an extra place in the hospital. My parents decided to transfer me to home-based education, because going outside was dangerous for me, and you would only see what huge heating bills came to us. In fact, in our country, we don't have heating, simply because we don't need it. If someone was very cold, they simply turned on a minimum floor heater and that was it. And then my parents had to get real radiators in my room, or I would die. Anyway, for the whole year, the doctors fought over my disease to heal me, and my parents worked only to pay the bills. And I just wanted to have fun with my friends as before, or just to walk my dog out, but I was forbidden to go outside. My friends sometimes dropped in to see me. Then they stopped doing this. They wanted to hang out outside and not sit with my parents over them. I understand them, yeah. In the end, everything became clear as mud. My physician deferred his PhD while studying me. He was about to get some kind of prize for the results of the studies, and my parents decided to move. Of course, it was hard for them to move from the place where they were born, grew up and built good careers, but there was no way out, and the whole family moved to the islands. The climate here is much better than anywhere else, plus 75 degrees Fahrenheit, the jungle and the evergreen trees. I could leave the house again. By the way, they transported me with a special charter plane, with 2 nurses on board and all kinds of heating bottles. The same thing was when they transported me to the airport, though there was a truck instead of the plane. In short, we got fed up with all of this. and it cost us a pretty penny. And what a pleasure it was to leave the house and feel a light ocean breeze on your face. If you have never felt this, then you probably won't understand. Plus, all sorts of fruits. The local guys accepted me into their company. A pure paradise. At first, we just had fun learning to surf, catching crabs with our hands, and throwing coconuts at each other. And I'm not talking about my new friends, but about my parents. But my mom's still quite young. She hasn't even turned 50 yet. But my dad, he's already over 60, with heart and blood pressure trouble. It turned out that such a paradise is not for him. And because of such heat, he's unlikely to live for a long time. Our family had a dilemma. On the one hand, the climate of the island was perfect for me. And on the other hand, my father was merely dying from the heat. Mom was between two fires. We negotiated and I convinced my parents that I didn't need around-the-clock care. I was already 18, so I could live on my own. Here, I entered veterinary college. I found a local boyfriend. My life became very good, and my parents got back to our homeland. We get in touch every evening, and on weekends or during vacation. My parents come to see me. A couple of weeks near the ocean won't harm Daddy's health. It's not like living in the heat all year round, so it's okay. But I shouldn't get back home anymore. Once I wanted to check if I still had my sore, but I couldn't even get out of the plane. The problem started just on board. I began to choke and blacken from the cold again. I had to urgently get off the flight and return home. But okay, I felt very well here. I don't know what kind of a sore I had. My doctors either. But it doesn't stop me from enjoying life to the fullest. Especially since it isn't something terrible, but an elite disease. Would you like to live on a paradise island? I think yes.
Hi people, I'm Adam, and I am a loser in love. I'm already 17 years old and I'm still a virgin, because my girlfriend and I have never managed to get the job done. Besides, now I have no girlfriend, so no luck in remedying the situation. I first met Ava at school. She was quite a voluptuous girl. I can't really say I'd loved her. You see, at the age of 15, it is not necessary to fall in love for your girlfriend to be perfect in your eyes, if you know what I mean. For about 6 months straight, we limited ourselves to holding hands and didn't move past that border. Of course, I've been thinking about going further like any 15-year-old guy would. But Ava was so cute and pretty that I couldn't bring myself to do so. I got her flowers and brought her gifts purchased with pocket money I asked from my dad. Well, guess I really loved her. Long talks with Ava made me incredibly happy. She had a great sense of humor and made perfect jokes, and she was smart enough to know when it was better to keep silent. I really enjoyed bringing her along to my company because she was the embodiment of adequacy against all the other girls. I made our first kiss as romantic as possible. We kissed in a dark park, under the stars and the full moon. Well, it was late autumn, and it was getting dark early. But hey, still counts. The cold has almost ruined my smart plan, though. Well, actually, we were both trembling. I was sniffing a lot, and got a flu afterwards. You see, a fashionable leather jacket does nothing to save its wearer from the cold. But in the end, Ava still liked it to the extent she bragged to her friends about the date later. Soon other girls began to tell their boyfriends that they too could be more romantic, and I was proud. When we both became 16, we first started talking about the next step up from the kisses. I surely wasn't expecting Ava to be the first of us to talk about it, yet it was originally her idea. Unfortunately, it was easier said than done. I was just a teenager and I was incredibly nervous, so, in short, I told her that our first time should be special and memorable, like earlier with a kiss, and then I searched the web forums for help. Adult films are just a ruse made up by professionals, and I needed a good manual for complete noobs. Besides, we had another problem. Ava and I had no place to stay together at. Her and my parents were always at home when we were done with school business. The parents didn't leave for weekends, they didn't like holiday trips, and the bosses didn't send them on business trips. It'd be fine if we could just ask the parents to get lost for a day. But we couldn't. Of course, my friends bragged about how they did it under the bleachers at the stadium, in school locker rooms, or even outdoors. Can't imagine making love in the company of mosquitoes and possible spectators in the bushes. But as for me, it's better to wait more than do it like that. The boys might as well propose a public toilet as a suitable place for me and Ava. Thing is, I didn't only love my girl, but also respected her as a person, probably even too much. So we were still running around in circles when an opportunity finally appeared. You see, I didn't just spend my day after day chasing Ava and begging my parents for money. I actually had some part-time jobs. My grandparents and relatives sometimes also gifted me with money. I carefully put every penny I've got this way into a piggy bank. Money's always handy to have around. And then I received an email from some recreation center. They offered a pool, a cultural program, a buffet, and all this for a relatively modest sum. My parents were just planning their wedding anniversary, and I thought it would be a nice gift for them to have a weekend in a cool place. And I've got a day in the company of Ava in my bedroom out of the deal. My parents grumbled at me at first. They thought I had spent too much, but then they figured out that they had no vacations for 3 years and took my offer. I invited Ava to my place, ordered some pizza, and we went into the full romance mode. At first, everything was great. A good film, delicious pizza, lots of kisses. But then, when it came down to action, I screwed it up. It sometimes happens during the first time, nerves and all that. Ava was very understanding and even calmed me down. We went to bed. I planned to wake her in the morning in a special way, but Ava's parents knocked on my door just before sunrise. It turned out that they had planned a family trip to a neighboring city where their elderly relative lived. So my romantic date unexpectedly ended despite me pouring all my savings into the brilliant plan. Well, at least my mom and dad had fun at the recreation center. But then it turned out that they had been incredibly impressed with my gift. Therefore, they repaid me in the same vein. You see, we had an annual project in our school, a summer and winter camp abroad. Parents paid half of the total sum, and the second half was provided by the school itself. Usually this turned into a vacation plus additional foreign language practice. Ava and I were in a German group, and our parents together decided to send us both to Germany for 2 weeks. It should have been great rest, plus a lot of German practice. Besides, it was nice to know that our parents trusted both of us so much. In fact, I had almost no complaints about the camp we stayed at. The only problem was that for all 2 weeks they didn't allow us to stay alone together for even a minute. No, seriously, they seemed to watch our every step. Guess the local counselors were firmly opposed to teenage pregnancies. Our bedrooms were on different floors, and counselors accompanied us on all activities. Marcia and I didn't even manage to hold hands once during all this time. Well, at least my German got so much better. I learned a lot of German swear words as a bonus. I had nothing else to do after all. So in fact, the plane turned out to be our last chance. You've surely heard all those stories about couples doing it in the plane's bathroom. According to the forum, the topic has already been studied up and down and is recognized as pretty viable. So I finally made up my mind and asked Ava for a walk around the plane sometime in the middle of the flight. She immediately agreed with zero hesitation. I had no doubt in her determination. She told me that she had been fed up with the long wait. As it turned out just a bit later, people who glorify the joys of a plane bathroom were too much immersed in their fantasies. Maybe it's better with a bathroom of a private jet, or at least in business class. You see, the toilet in economy class was just plain awful. It looked unfit even for its intended usage, not mentioning the thing we were trying to do there. But we didn't give up. This time I was affected by the lack of regular exercises with my right hand and was angry beyond belief. Ava was quite agitated too. This time, we almost did it. Unfortunately, the bathroom floor, together with an air pocket, destroyed everything. I was holding Ava elevated and desperately tried to make her feel good, and at that very moment, the disaster struck. The plane got in an air pocket. My leg, like a bad comedy, got yanked forward, and our pair of lovers flew in different directions. I fell with my back to the door, and Ava's leg got directly into a toilet bowl. I'm quite a skinny guy, but the door swang open under my weight, and the latch was torn out completely. I fell on the floor with my pants down and zero underwear. Everyone in our cabin of the plane turned around to look at me, and the stewardesses run to the bathroom. When I raised my head, I saw Ava smeared in the contents of the dry closet knee-deep. She was naked too, but in her case it was the lesser of evils. All the spectators laughed at our faces. Some even recorded videos on their phones. They did not even yell at us, although the parents were still ordered to pay a fine. The flight attendants managed to clean Ava up, and we did not talk until the end of the flight. We tried even not to look at each other, because the situation in general was too embarrassing. Later, at the airport, Ava told me she wanted to break up. After such an adventure, she didn't want to have anything in common with me anymore. She needed somebody more decisive and adequate. I wasn't even offended, because I knew that I royally screwed up in the most shameful way. There was a video on YouTube which was fortunately deleted in a couple of days. There were several articles in our local newspaper dedicated to me and Ava. No names were mentioned, but they put frames from the video into one of the articles. We have become the local laughingstock. Since then, I have given up on the attempts to do it until better times. Now I tell everyone that my time hasn't come yet, and that I haven't yet met the girl I really need. But time passes, and my trauma gets no better. If you really want to know it, then yes, I'm still a virgin, although a year has passed since the incident. The most annoying thing is that Ava is doing much better than me. She even wants to marry her new boyfriend. And I still have nothing. Nope, there are no girls interested in me. Some of them even approve of a one-night stand, but I simply cannot bring myself to do it. Hi everybody, my name's Alex, and I am the person who believed for a long time that things were all right with him. But as it usually happens, life showed me how wrong I was. When I was a kid, I was a completely ordinary and normal guy. The only advantage I had over my peers was that I rarely felt ill. The worst thing I could have was a cold or something that passed just for 3 days. I've never even been injured. When we were in junior school, we decided to jump off the bridge into the water together. I don't know why this idea seemed so great. It was about 3 meters high. I never thought it was a bad thing. And I was jumping together with other guys, and I knew all the guys. Our bridge was not the best place to jump at all, because of the rebar sticking out at the bottom, which no one bothered to cut or at least fill with concrete. That day, many guys were injured, but not much. However, it was enough to stop such extreme sports. But I wasn't injured. Not a bruise on the water, not even a scratch on my leg. Nothing. It was like I'm a man of steel or something. The doctor told me at the hospital that I was just lucky, and also, unlike my peers, I have a very good level of calcium, which is why my bones are so strong. And my parents yelled at me, yeah, but they didn't explain anything. Just a healthy kid who does stupid things, that's all. And then I lived quietly, not even knowing it was a failure, and the thing was much more complicated. We have mandatory medical examinations at school, but as a rule, if something was serious, our parents were called out. Kids are never told anything, because they are not supposed to and they don't need to. So the first time I encountered my own body was when I was called up for the military service. In our country, when you're 18, you have to go to mandatory army service, but there are some delays in health and education. Usually, guys finish school when they are 18, and then all together, in the same order as in the class, they start taking the oath, defending the homeland. And no, we are not just true patriots. Just, the army is a very useful thing. Without the army service, no one will take you to a good job, unless you couldn't pass it for the health reasons. The army pays a good salary for the service, which you can save for college or university if your scores from school don't allow you to get a scholarship. If you don't want to go anywhere,
the Army service is a possibility when you already have at least one profession on your hands, or even more. Well, like a dispatcher, or a mechanic, or just a trucker. And for others, it's extra time to figure out exactly what you want out of life. So for me, there was never any question to serve or not to serve in the Army. As soon as I got my school certificate, I went to the recruiting office, all by myself, because honestly, my classmates have been given everything for a long time and they passed all the necessary medical tests before the graduation, but for some reason the recruiting office was delaying with me. The recruiting office was surprised by my responsibility and issued a referral to the medical commission. This was also strange because usually no directions were given to anyone, just if they didn't initially know that the person would not serve, he declared about this. That is, a referral is given if a person has a white ticket, is sick or even disabled, but he wants to serve on his own will. Even then, I didn't worry. Well, sometimes maybe something got confused or the program got lost. Nothing special anyway. And if you had just used your brains for the right purpose, then this confusion wouldn't have happened. I said nothing to my parents because I wanted it to be a surprise, but the surprise had an opposite meaning for me. Because after the first MRI, the doctor looked at me, twirled her finger at my temple, and said with my diagnosis, I would never see any Army service ever. You see, I always sincerely thought that I was healthy. And then they tell me about some diagnosis that I knew nothing about and just can't answer. That's what I told the doctor, and she showed me the results and explained what I had. 2 hearts, 4 kidneys, and anyway, I'm not a human but a Doctor Who. I thought they were making fun of me. I even looked around for a camera or something. But no, everything was quiet and sad, and the doctor went to pick up my data from the clinic where my family usually went. That's when I discovered what my parents were hiding from me. No, I'm not a Time Lord, and the TARDIS will not be for me. I just have another person living inside me. Well, like, not living and not quite human, but anyway, I don't know how to explain it normally. Anyway, when my mom was pregnant, she formed 2 zygotes at once, like twins. Only one of the zygotes absorbed the other at an early stage and turned out to be me. Technically, there are 2 of us, but in fact, there is only one body. But the set of internal organs is paired. Can you imagine how confused I was then? Seriously, I was almost sent to psychiatry. I was so hysterical. But it cost a shot of some kind of sedative in half sleep and calling the parents. These, by the way, were the last things I wanted to see at the time, and certainly not in the state I was in. I had a lot of questions that only they could answer, and the first one was like, what's going on here? But I was allowed to talk to my parents only the next day, because the injection still knocked me out for a whole day. A good drug. Doctors did not regret it. It turned out that they, of course, knew everything because no one ever hid the results of my examinations from them. Actually, they knew everything during my mother's pregnancy. They saw it on ultrasound. But they didn't think I needed this information. Like, son, why do you need to know that you are a fierce anomaly that ate your own brother or sister in your mother's stomach? At first, they wanted to remove all the excess from me, because they were afraid that the body would not stand up or begin to change somehow incorrectly, and a normal kid would grow up to be a freak. But the doctors told me to watch, and as a result, my body somehow agreed with the extra organs, even shared hormones. So I ate for 3, didn't get fat, and I was the healthiest kid in town. That's also why I never broke any limbs, and small abrasions healed abnormally quickly. My success in sports, my endurance, my good skills of a marathon runner is also my big thanks to Mother Nature. But I was still not accepted into the Army with such an anomaly, because if something happened, no one would know how to help me. But this feature was already related to the fact that we, even though our parents earn above average in the city, we never went abroad, and in general beyond the suburbs. My parents were just afraid to take me far away from the right clinic. I had no idea how I was going to get on with my life. On the other hand, everything seems to be okay. Just take these bonuses and be happy. On the other, knowing that 2 people live in you at once is not what any normal person would want. I just didn't know how to act, how to live my life. All my plans for the future were built in a normal, standard life. The army, a university, a job, and a beautiful wife. And now what? The army is definitely no. A university? Well, it's questionable because I didn't have enough of my own brains. If only my parents will pay. And I can't understand how I should communicate with the girls. My parents, who screwed up when they hid the truth about my body from me, decided to fix it themselves. They got paid for a good therapist and some lectures from a very clever therapist. I don't know who helped more, but as a result, I somehow resigned myself. Yes, I have a number of restrictions in my life, mostly those that are about security. Well, that you can't go too far because something may happen and other doctors won't help you. Some other people advise me to add to the number of my medical insurance policy, blood group, the phrase, yes, I have two hearts and I need them both, but the latter is more for fun. I also need to exercise sport in order to shed excess hormones such as testosterone, eat right, and not take drugs or alcohol. The usual list, except for trips. And most importantly, the doctor promised that I even need to communicate with girls if I will normally protect myself. The issue about the university was also resolved. My parents, as I knew it, immediately after my birth opened a special account in my name, just to save money for studying. So my education was paid for fairly, and even without any reproaches about the fact that I needed to study better. Practically, I had my happy ending, but once I still managed to mess up, even with such a positive scenario. The fact is that the university sent us to the competition in a neighboring city, and since I am the hope and faith of our athletics team, my participation was not even discussed. I was the first one to draw up all the documents and buy a ticket. I didn't refuse because, well, what can happen if I just go to the competition? I didn't even tell my parents. I thought I'd go for a day and come back. But by this time, I needed to realize that nothing in my life ever happens the way I planned. We were running, and then all I remember is a hard blow in my head. I came back to my senses in hospital with a severe concussion and just an obscenely huge bump on my head. An athlete by a nearby university accidentally tripped on the gravel and flew straight into my back feet first, as in bad comedies. It's all bullshit, but it heals quickly on me. But my strange specific feature was discovered at the university and I was removed from the competition. Anyway, they banned me any participation in any competitions, and many people, including professors, stopped communicating with me. And I don't even know, I believe that I'm not some kind of freak, but just a special one. But I think all these people don't agree with my therapist.
Hi everyone, my name is Helen, and I want to tell you a story that's not really about me. It's a story about a good friend of mine, who's an extremely interesting person and a hobo. Try not to draw hasty conclusions. Watch the video to the end first. Me and Pete first met when I was still a teenager. At that time, anyone who looked at me saw only a giant school bag and 2 disheveled pigtails. Yet, Pete didn't shush me away when I tried talking to him, and that was the beginning of our friendship. Since then, we've been friends for 6 years, and now I swear I have never met a more amazing person. Funny thing is that until recently, I didn't even suspect that Pete is really a homeless man. A person whose home is a mattress under a heating pipe not far from our main city park. I met him by chance. Someone at the school told me that our city is home of an insanely cool guide. The guide, I was told, earned his living by taking people to the most interesting locations in the city. We're now talking not about trivial tourist attractions like museums and monuments. Old porches, the houses that earned some unique reputation due to various scary and glorious events, lush unknown squares, stuff like that. Our local stalkers often collaborated with this guide. He always knew of all the abandoned buildings, and whether they were safe to explore or not. Naturally, all the kids in our class, me included, immediately fired up to go on such an excursion. Pete was able to conduct only a brief tour because of our age. It's not safe to take children to abandoned houses, for example. Yet, it really was the most exciting city tour in my life. They definitely didn't tell us such stories at school. Of course, the excursion turned out to be insanely expensive, especially for students, but it was worth every cent. Later on, I visited him alone, and he told me that his main clients were rich foreigners who wanted to delve into the culture of another country, hence the frantic prices. He was the only person able to provide such an exclusive tour. Besides, he was fluent in 3 languages besides his native one, and one of those languages was Japanese of all things. As a very curious girl who loved history, I visited him many more times. Once, I got up the courage and asked him for an invitation to one of his exclusive tours. Pete laughed but agreed, and let me join free of charge. During excursions, he was catering to tourists, and I was only allowed to tag along. I had to try my very best in order to understand what he was talking about. Guess now I owe it to him with my future profession as a technical translator. As I got older, I uncovered more facts about Pete. Once, he told me that he literally lived on the street. For a long time, I really wanted to share his story with other people. Now, I think the time has come. Many years ago, Pete taught the history of architecture at the university. Not a fancy job, mind you, yet he loved his subject. Pete also had a family, a beautiful wife, and a smart little daughter who, like her father, was fascinated with various foreign languages. But when the girl turned 13, she was diagnosed with cancer. Doctors said it was too late for chemotherapy. Of course, there were experimental methods, but those didn't guarantee any success and required outrageous amounts of money. The modest university teacher and the housewife were devastated. They sold all their property, got into terrible debt, but at some point, the money ran out and the girl was taken off of life support. That was the end. Pete and his wife were left without money and without a home, but the worst thing was that they lost their child. Pete sought solace in alcohol and disconnected from reality. He didn't even notice when his wife left him. In some time, the former lecturer returned to his senses. He was already a hobo, without a home, without work, and without any purposes in life. It was almost too late to do something. Yet, Pete didn't want to die on the street. He felt that it would be a betrayal to his daughter's memory. That was the moment when Pete decided to leave a good legacy in the late girl's name. The only thing left to Pete was his knowledge. So the former lecturer put it to good use during the aforementioned exclusive tours. Soon, Pete's tours became insanely popular, and he started making some serious money. Yet Pete was beyond simple excursions. He offered to several clients special services, such as a hobo life thematic game for those who wanted some thrill in their lives. The people were willing to pay outrageous sums to participate in those games. Even one retainer would allow Pete to buy a decent mansion and leave the streets behind forever. In fact, soon, Pete turned out to be one of the richest people in the city. And yet, he remained homeless. I asked him once, unable to understand why he was still living under a heating pipe. Pete only smiled and told me that he no longer needed money and material wealth. In fact, he gave all the earnings to charity. There was a medical clinic for children with cancer in our town that exists only because of Pete. He told me that he already saved 50 children, and he wanted to support the clinic for the rest of his life. That was the last time I met him in person. Since then, we haven't spoken, but I know that he is still alive and continues his work. The aforementioned clinic is considered to be the best and cheapest one in the region. Children there are treated at the expense of a sponsor who wants to remain anonymous. I myself am now transferring part of the money to charity, but I know that I could never have fully dedicated my life to helping others. Pete is my hero, and I'm proud to be acquainted with such a person. Hey everyone, my name is Melanie. My story will show that money is everything, and when you have no money, you turn into a creepy creature instead of a human being. That's what really happened to me. Now, because I lack money, I look like an old lady at 14. My mother is a worker. Our family is very poor. We somehow survive using our small farm, or rather vegetable garden, which helps us not to die of hunger. It happened so that Dad was fired from his previous job. He was so upset about it that for 5 years in a row, he took different drugs. Then the money ran out. So did he. My mom has no job in education. She had to take care of me. The only job she could take was a janitor. Of course, it's unreal to get money sweeping the streets, even for one person. But she had to raise up both of us. However, we were lucky. Even twice, as a single mom, Mom was given some perks and land to live on, with a very small house. It was right next to the park where she worked. And yeah, we needn't pay for our housing. Plus, sometimes they provided us with food for free and gave me school things. The rest of the things we had to earn on our own. Besides, my mom was ill. There was something with her lungs. She had a terrible cough all the time. We spent most of our money to buy some medicine. That's also why I had to help her with her work ever since I was a kid. She also took some extra part-time jobs, and I started working at the age of 6, sweeping the streets for her and cleaning the apartment blocks. Yeah, it was hard, but my mom was also so exhausted. She even fell down from fatigue at the end of the working day. We had no choice. If it hadn't been for the little patch of land next to the house, we probably wouldn't have lived to see this day. Mom somehow ennobled this piece of land and began to plant the most necessary vegetables there, like potatoes and tomatoes. The pumpkins were still going well, though I didn't particularly like them. 2 women don't need much, so the food issue was closed to us. It was. Some rare, little, but was. Then I went to school and I had my first smart clothes, a school uniform, which I was given along with a briefcase and all the office supplies. The briefcase was simplest, and my mom had to hem the skirt because it was larger. But all the clothes were new and only mine. With our income, we mostly dressed in the parish charity, and sometimes went to the cheapest second-hand, which hit the budget hard. Even there the prices for us were unaffordable, especially for winter shoes. So I was happy with the new clothes. But exactly until I got to first grade. The children are not very kind at all, and I was immediately teased in all sorts of ways. But I did not pay attention to them. I had no time. After school, I had to run to my mother. Then I had to tinker with the garden and do something around the house while my mother was cooking. So, that school has become no relish, but rather complement in my endless webbing agony. Once, I was very much insulted by the girls from our class because of the clothes I took from charity organizations. You see, all our city residents gave their clothes for charity. It happened that my new jacket previously belonged to one of my classmates. One day, she started pulling this jacket off of me, right in the middle of the school, shouting that it's her thing and I stole it. I had to go back home only in my school uniform. It was autumn and it was already cold. Later, I got sick for a week, but nobody cared. When I was 13, our class was photographed for the graduation album. Well, for good memory. Or something like that. I honestly wanted to stand in the photo with everyone, but they moved me in the last row. They even threw me out, because when I first saw myself in a picture, I cried for a long time. All the girls looked like cute dolls, and my face was gray and tired. I looked like a horror movie character. But it only got worse. When I was 14, I already had wrinkles. They were huge and creepy and they looked like cracks. The reason was my permanent work outdoors. My hands were red and they constantly peeled. I always lacked sleep. There were heavy and disgusting bags under my eyes. They even hang down to my cheeks. And add the secondhand wear to it? No surprising they started giving me handouts and calling me a grandma. It was terribly offensive. But the most terrible thing was that I did have a way out. And it was so simple. Buy a normal cream, start eating more food, at least meat or something like that, vitamins, dress up and stop working outdoors, rain or shine. I'm still a little girl. I would overcome this. However, such things are available to anyone, except those who have no money, even for the most necessary things. My mom bought me some cheap cream and told me to use it, but it did not help at all. My peeling only got worse. At 14, I look like an old lady, and I just have no choice to change anything. My mom once burst into tears and offered to send me to some boarding school. At least I would eat there at my fullest. Maybe somehow I could get out of this swamp. But I know she'll die without me. I don't want to leave her. My mom is the only one. I love her very much, so I'll help her while I can. Nevertheless, I feel sad someone gets anything they want because they were born with a golden spoon in their mouth, and others had to suffer their whole life because they didn't get lucky. I also want to love, talk to my classmates, wear beautiful clothes with colorful prints. Unfortunately, it's all just my dreams now. This is it, my true and sad story of my small life. Hi, my name is Piper, and I want to tell you my trash story about how my mom had cheated on me. Yes, usually ex-boyfriends tend to cheat on somebody, but I don't even have to find boyfriends for this. My mom does it perfectly by herself, and so perfectly that I'm terrified. It so happened that I'm 19 and I'm still living with my parents. My university is really close to my house, by the way, and my house is a big one, so there's no sense to move somewhere else. Anyway, living with my parents seemed better for me. They are always somewhere near, ready to give me their love and support. And I started to make some money when I was 16. I spent money for traveling, sometimes with my parents. Everybody is happy anyway. In my free time, I go in for fitness to be prettier for photos. So I have a really beautiful body, and I notice guys looking at me. I'm not boasting now. Don't think something like that about me. It's just an important thing to understand all the unexpected turns in my life in this story. Nevertheless, I have a wonderful look, and I don't have a boyfriend. I just don't have time for wasting with guys. And I want to meet that one. And I want him to love animals, traveling. I want him to be handsome, clever, and funny. I want him to earn a lot of money. So it's a great list. And there is no suitable guy. One day in the evening, I had been surfing the net, checking different pages, looking for a tour to go on my vacation. Nothing special. I've already saved all the pages that I needed, and there were some interesting blogs about tourism. But I wasn't ready to see some advertisement, especially one ad. I was shocked. I can surely say that I don't visit dating sites, especially that kind of dating websites. If I want a one-time date, I just go outside and have one. But the photo of myself invited me to that site. Of course, I bookmarked the link, and I saw the page of the girl that offers chatting. So you understand what kind of website it is. But that girl was me. Judging by the photo and hobbies, it was me. It even said on the website that it's me myself. And there were a lot of photos. And it was made without an unnatural manner. Moreover, only the most interesting perspective. I got the impression that I'm going crazy. Someone couldn't create that page and seriously continue posting there with such things in the right mind. I'm not suffering from memory failure, so I couldn't do these mad things and forget about that. And the main thing is that I've never made that kind of a photo. Instagram girls take some beautiful photos with effects, light playing, making bad moments less recognizable. You know, girls do that, like it's a necessary thing. And now, there wasn't anything from that list. Usual light from a lamp bulb, but a great accent on the body. After that and after a mental breakdown, I wrote to the support line, and they denied to delete the photos of me. I understand the obvious thing, in case that I didn't take those photos. Somebody else made that. I didn't know who I should suspect. Maybe the murderer behind my window. I don't have other variants. I decided to prove my suspicions or try to find the person on the other side of the wire. How? Really easy. I created a new mail account and wrote something to the supposedly me. Something like, "Hello, you're a beauty," and so on. And in the response, the person on the other side of the wire offered me to buy my intimate photos. He told me the price, and I was shocked in the beginning. And after that, I was really confused. He gave me the number of my mom's bank account. But I decided to go until the end and I sent the money. I really wanted to find out what was happening. It seemed so simple. I figured it out by the photos. You don't have to be Sherlock to understand. Usually, I sleep without any clothes. Install some mini cameras in my room? A 5-minute deal. Take photos and enjoy your life. When I asked why, Mom confessed that she makes money for living this ingenious way. I saw the price for 5 photos. There was enough money for the journey. We've been arguing for a long time. Mom couldn't understand what exactly I don't like. She doesn't mean anything bad. She just earns money for all of us. On my revenge porn. Yeah. To be short, everything was ending at that moment. When I told her to delete that wretched page, and told her that if she's not going to stop, then I don't have a mother anymore. I'll tell my dad and other relatives too. After that, Mom realized that she did a bad thing to me, and deleted that page and all the photos from her laptop. I don't know why. Anyhow, I moved. I decided to take this situation as a motivation from destiny to live alone. I rent a tiny flat and checked it properly if there were any video cameras and other video systems. Now I live in a peaceful and calm environment. Recently, I found that site and I was going to check it again, but something stopped me. But on the main page, I saw the photo of my mom. It seems like she wasn't going to lose any money. But for her photos, she uses a lot of light and corrections. And she also wears a mask. But I recognize my home wallpaper from thousands, and also my mom's body. For me, that story ended without any aftermath. Just great moral trauma because of cheating from one of the closest people to me. I won't trust people for a long time after that, just in case. If you've ever had such an experience and similar situations in your life, write in the comments. Let's create a club of cheated internet revenge porn guys. Support me with your likes. And remember that even relatives can do strange things that you'll be shocked. Much love. Bye.